Hello, my name is Ram Candavel. I would like to share with you a small modification of my cataract surgery technique that significantly improved the reproducibility of my surgeries. Whether you use the stop and chop technique or the divide and conquer method of subdividing the nucleus into more manageable halves or quarters, most of us create a central groove or two grooves forming a cross, and then place our second instrument and phacoemulsification tip at the base of the groove and gently separate. However, depending on the nuclear density and the depth of the groove, separating the fragments can be successful. However, in the wrong circumstances, the process can be frustrating, requiring further grooving to improve depth or to widen the channel so that more of the peripheral, denser nucleus is emulsified. While teaching the residents, I've encountered many times an inconsistent division of the nucleus, an integral step which should be relatively straightforward, but instead results in unequal or sometimes even fragmented pieces that are not completely separated. In the worst case scenario, the process may result in the dreaded bowl effect of the nucleus. We all know this can further snowball into a more difficult cataract surgery when it should be quite straightforward, if we could get the pieces separated consistently each and every time. For residents learning horizontal chop, or even for more experienced surgeons who want to transition to horizontal chop, I think that this simple modification in your grooving technique will allow a more predictable separation of the nucleus, whether you use stop and chop or divide and conquer technique. Let's first discuss the ideal technique for nuclear separation. A perfect groove would be very deep and very peripheral. However, we balance this advantage against the risk of puncturing the posterior capsule if the groove was too long or too deep. The reason these are ideal characteristics is the purpose of the groove is to create a debulking of the denser central nucleus in order to create a fracture point. Furthermore, a peripheral groove allows a larger moment arm in order to begin and then propagate the fracture. Let's compare it to cutting a watermelon. Once we make the groove down the center of the watermelon, it makes sense we would not put an instrument in the middle, but rather use the physical advantage to propagate the crack by simply spreading the pieces at their most peripheral point, at the greatest distance from the center. Similarly, if enough of the central nucleus is debulked, we would split the nucleus from the edges. However, traditional teaching tries to spread from the center. This grade 3-4+ nucleus is an excellent example to help practice the chop the groove technique. This technique is a simple modification combining horizontal chop and your standard stop and chop or divide and conquer grooving technique. After the central groove or cross is created, the tip of the phacoemulsification needle is placed in the peripheral edge of your groove at its most peripheral point. Then, carefully taking the second instrument under the capsule and around the peripheral equator of the lens, we bring the two instruments together in our standard horizontal chop technique. This will create a consistent division of the nucleus, which is more reliable and more reproducible, and less reliant on the depth and length of the groove created. Essentially, it's more forgiving. Watch as I place the Cybele second instrument around the edge of the nucleus, and then bring the phacoemulsification tip to the edge of the groove. Bringing them together creates a consistent chop. The reason this technique works better than traditional nuclear separation with a bimanual technique at the center of the lens is because we are using the peripheral edge of the groove, which is furthest from the nuclear center, and optimizes the moment arm, magnifying the force used to separate the central nuclear fibers. In addition, mechanically, horizontally chopping the peripheral nuclear fibers helps facilitate the division of the central fibers. This is twofold better and surprisingly advantageous. Using this motion to gain a good feel for the nuclear equator without the trepidation of reaching further from the center of the nucleus acts as a nice bridge to horizontal chopping for the rest of the case. Practicing the chop the groove technique often will make horizontal chopping more facile as your go-to method of nuclear disassembly. This technique is not a breakthrough by any means, but I think it will help to make your technique more consistent and make cataract surgery also more enjoyable. I've now used this chopping the groove technique in each and every one of my cases for the last 10 years. As we all perform surgery, often making any part of it easier can have a significant impact on the quality of your workday and the pleasure we take from helping others to see better. I hope this will improve your technique and make your life easier. Please look out for my other videos, and thank you for joining me.